Hello, my friends. It's Jules Caldwell. So great to be back with you this week. This is part 3 of our 4-part series called She's Got Plans, Real Talk About Women, Wealth, and What Matters Most financial series. For those of you who might be just joining us for the first time, my name is Julie Caldwell. I'm the host of this series and creator of the Ignite events for women. And I'm here again with my good friend and financial expert, Matthew Henley, who's an investment advisor with RBC Dominion Securities. Welcome back, Matthew.
Thanks, Julie. Great to be back. Great to see you, and everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm really excited for today's session, talking about retirement planning. It's probably the topic that I deal with most, and especially women preparing for retirement. It's probably one of the largest constituencies I work with. So really excited to be back here today.
So this is a good chat. I'm looking forward to this
I
one.
hope so,
nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for those of you who missed the first 2 sessions, in week 1, we talked about where do we even start getting clear on your financial picture, understanding where you're at today so you can start planning the life you want. In session 2, we talked about investing without the intimidation and how to make your money work for you without fear, confusion, or intimidation. And if you missed out on those but would like to find out what we talked about, I invite you to either message me at connect@countryjewel.ca, or you can go to my YouTube channel. I think I can put it up here on the screen. Hold on. You can visit youtube.com/countryjewelretreats, and you can watch the videos. We get them uploaded after our session. So as Matthew said, today we're unpacking the topic of retirement. And this is something that's right around the corner for me. I'm pretty much 2 years to the day away from when I'm eligible to retire. And I think, at the end of the day, I've only just recently started putting energy and effort to thinking about this because I'm fortunate enough to have a pension. But I would argue, Matthew, that it's probably never too soon to start preparing for retirement, right?
No, I completely agree, and I'm so happy that we have worked together on your financial plan and started the process on your end. But it's really amazing how often I speak with women who are a few years out or starting to consider retirement, and when the conversation comes up, how are you preparing for retirement? What do you have in mind for retirement? The number of times I hear, you know what, I haven't really thought about it yet.
Yeah.
Or my husband looks after everything. I haven't, I'm just kind of following along and following the lead. So I really hope at least one of the takeaways today is to, really empower everyone listening in to start their journey, start their process. And it really all begins with your financial plan. That's going to be the best way to get an understanding of where you are today and what's needed for the future. Julie, you have about 2 years left of work. These are your growth years and where you really want your investments to be working for you, growing for you, and using this time to make sure that your retirement accounts are up, open, running, and growing. This is the time to get all of that done. So it's really important to start the conversation as early as possible. The longer you have with your plan and with your strategy, it's only going to help out on the back end. And I think when you are able to start planning earlier, you can really keep a couple key considerations in mind. One, women especially at some point are probably more likely to have to take on some form of a caregiver role. Probably will outlive their spouse or partner or even live to an older age than maybe anticipated. When we do financial plans, we're building out to age 95 now.
Wow.
And at some point, just knowing the statistics around life expectancy, at some point, for the women out there, you are going to have to, if your spouse or husband dies, you're going to have to take over those finances. So getting started early, getting comfortable early is so important.
Yeah, I love that. And, I have to say I'm guilty of that. When I was married, I had given sort of full financial control over to my husband. I was like, he was in accounting, and I was like, of course, why not? Why wouldn't I give you that to take care of? But then we got divorced, and it was like, oh gosh, what do I do? And I have to admit, from a retirement perspective, I've kind of rested on the fact that I am fortunate enough to work for an organization that I've been at for 30 years this year. So I have a pension plan. And so in the back of my head, I've never really thought about retirement other than I know I have a pension and I'm going to tap into it. And it wasn't until you and I started really sitting down and looking at stuff together in the last year or so where I was like, I actually don't know what any of this really means or where I stand in the midst of things. And I think one of the pieces that I really appreciated the most about some of our conversations was about redefining what enough in retirement meant for me. Because at the end of the day, one of the first questions you asked me, is, well, what kind of life do you want to have? What kind of life do you have now? And what kind of life do you want to have when you retire? And those are really important questions, because if you want to maintain or sustain the kind of life you live now, you actually have to have a plan for what's next, right?
Well, that's it. And it's all part of the financial planning process. You need to know, or at least have some idea, put some thought into what you're trying to accomplish in this next phase of your life, and then build the proper financial plan and investment strategy around that. So I encourage everyone, if you're a few years out from retirement, start thinking about what your life looks like in retirement. Finances is important, but it's a tool to continue living a life you want to live. So
yes.
And Julie, we've had great conversations about what you may envision retirement to look like. For some people, it's spending more time on a side hustle or a part-time job or hobby that they're passionate about. Maybe it's more time with family. I mean, travel's a big one. Obviously very popular.
Yeah.
But start thinking about what your life's going to look like, how you're going to fill all the time you're about to have. So start thinking that through, and then we can work backwards a little bit on what the finances need to be to take care of that lifestyle.
I think there's also been this misconception or myth that I would love to bust, because when you hear the word retirement, we picture a certain age, maybe a certain dollar amount, but it's really not a finish line, right? It's actually about this getting ready for the next season of life that reflects our values and our priorities. So I love that you were just talking about that, because there's so much more we can do when we're actually not tied to, what a full-time day job looks like. And I don't know about a lot of you, I can never imagine myself retiring officially. I'll quit the day job I have for sure, but I'll pursue the thing that brings me passion and purpose, and I'll spend time with family, and maybe I'll travel. And so I think a really important part of this conversation is reminding ourselves that it's not a finish line that we're trying to get to. It's really about preparing to live this next season of our life that's in alignment with who we are and what we want, right?
Well, I got to interrupt, because I think that's such a great point, and I think it's in part a reason why people put off retirement planning, because there's some sort of fear around this a phase of life is coming to an end. You're in a different stage of life, and it brings out some bigger thoughts perhaps, but by taking that time to really appreciate that this is just a next phase of that life where you're going to have more freedom from a time perspective, more ability to do some of the things that you really enjoy. And I guess in my experience, most of the time, your expenses are probably reduced. So it's going through the planning process will probably provide some comfort and show everyone that there is a way for them to be ready for retirement, more so than they probably think.
So I wonder, Matthew, what are some of the myths, if I can use that word, that you've heard from people about, what they think they need for retirement? How do we bust some of these preconceptions that people have?
Well, it's funny. I think the most common thing is everyone thinks, I need a dollar amount, and for some people that's I don't know, $1 million or $10 million, whatever the number could be.
Yeah.
And listen, maybe that's true. Maybe a number, probably a number is required somewhere, but I have a feeling, I guess in my experience, it's usually a smaller number than everyone thinks. We go back to the power of investing and compounding and living off the returns of your retirement nest egg and savings.
And we talked about that in the last session 2.
That's right. But you can stretch that out and get more out of your money when you've gone through that planning process.
Yeah.
Things to consider. Start identifying your sources of income. For example, do you own a home? Do you have a pension? Do you have an RSP? How will you start drawing on RSP or your RIF account? What are some strategies to reduce taxes? There's a lot to consider, but going through that, sitting down, going through that planning process is the most important part.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm like, oh my gosh. And really, at the end of the day, what I'm hearing about is have options for how you want to sustain the way you want to live your life. And I think we probably, I don't know if any of you out there are like this, but take for granted some of these things that Matthew just talked about. We do it because they say you should do it, but we don't really know why we're doing it or understand the value or the impact of it. And I think that's an important part of the conversation. And one thing I've learned in my conversations with Matthew over the last year is it's never too late. While they're, in a perfect world, you want to start as soon as possible, saving and really asking the right questions. So whatever age you are and that you're watching this, it's not too late. Start now. Yes, you want to start sooner, but, set yourself up so you have these options with different sources of income, or how you can turn equity into, cash in some way that's going to help you, or invest it properly, that kind of stuff. And so, always thinking about what's enough going to look like for you. So Matthew, I'm wondering, sorry, go ahead.
Well, and I think it's so important, just again, take stock of what you have. Julie, when we were going through your financial plan, I think you, like most people, were aware that there was a pension, but many people aren't entirely sure of where it's at, the amount it's at, what it's invested it in. So take stock of what you have, and make sure or confirm that you're going to have some assets that can be put to work for you. I think in many cases, people are surprised at are positively surprised at the size of their pension and what that's going to be able to do for them. For people that own a home, if downsizing is an option in the future, like there's so many ways to make your assets that you've accumulated in your working years work for you post-retirement. So I just, really want to say that it's probably not as bad as you may think for the people out there that are reluctant or hesitant to really dive in and start thinking what their retirement could look like.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And I felt that way. I shared that with you, right? I was like, I don't want to have these conversations with you because I think it's really bad. And at the end of the day, it wasn't that bad. And I was like, oh, okay, there's actually a pretty, positive net worth. Matthew, what advice do you have for people who maybe don't work in jobs that have a pension necessarily, but are wanting to save for retirement? What are some good ways to be able to do that?
So if you're still working, and if retirement is on the horizon, but not overnight, I mean, you still have time. Max out your RSPs to the best of your ability, to have your TFSA, your tax-free savings account open, and contributing to that as much as possible. These are great tools and resources for your retirement lifestyle. and they are growing tax-free while you are contributing and while you're continuing to save. So it's a great resource, and that's just an account. Again, I want to be mindful that for some of the people listening in, it doesn't necessarily, opening an account doesn't mean you have to have complicated investments within the account. There's a whole host of a range of different investments that can exist in those accounts, but just get started in a place where you can grow assets tax-free.
And having just a savings account is probably not enough to do what we want to do in that sense, right?
It's probably not enough.
Yeah.
It's probably not enough. Speak to a planner, someone at the bank, online resources. Make sure you're comfortable knowing exactly what an RRSP is, what your TFSA is, and how they can work for you. If you have some questions or just want clarification, please reach out. I'm always happy to chat about that. But if you don't have a if you don't have a pension, if you don't have major assets, well, there are still in Canada, we still have resources that are there to help. Government retirement benefits. For many people, this will replace about 30 to 40% of your pre-retirement income. If you want, and if you do not have an idea of what your CPP or OAS figures, monthly or annual payments will be, reach out. I can show you how to figure out a pretty good idea of what those payments will be. So when you're planning, you can start to see that there will be income coming in. There's revenue for you through government retirement benefits.
Is that something you have to apply for, Matthew, or is that something you're automatically eligible by age?
You have the ability to take your CPP at different points through to your after age 60. The earlier you take it, the payment is reduced. So just be mindful of what that payment's going to look like, and the most appropriate or strategic time for you to take that on, because you can take that whether it's 60 or 65, 70. The amount's going to change, but there's obviously a lot of strategy into when to take that to make the most of it.
I love that. So what you're saying is say in my scenario, for example, I plan to retire in 2 years, but that'll be early retirement for me because I'll be turning 55. Right. But I'll have been at my job at that point for 32 years. And so it would not be advisable for me to consider starting to claim that right away. Wait at least another 5 to 10 years, give or take, maybe, is what I'm hearing you say.
You will have to wait till age 60 and then 65 for old age security. But even from there, and maybe in an example where someone is retiring at 55 and taking on a side hustle or working, maybe if they don't need the funds at age 60 or 65, maybe delaying them makes the most sense. So it's a conversation certainly to have with an advisor or someone you are close with, but there are decisions to make, and the earlier you can start to think those through, the better, because you can plan around that. You can plan around the revenue coming in at age 60, or if it should be pushed later. Be mindful be mindful of employee pension plans that you might have, income that will be available if you've contributed to your RRSPs, how to use your other savings and investments. Again, there's probably a more strategic time to start depleting savings or investment accounts throughout your retirement years. So talk to your advisor and have an idea of when that makes the most sense on which accounts to deplete and when. Another strategy is reverse mortgages or using some equity in your home or downsizing, selling your home to fund retirement. I think a lot of people are at some point probably move out of their, the family home, their working home into something a little bit smaller. Start using that. It's all projections, but start using the value of your home and the revenue you will receive from the sale of a home for planning purposes. So there's a lot of ways to still rely on some revenue come retirement. Not everyone's going to have a side hustle or a part-time job, but there's resources out there.
Or not everybody will have a ship that will come in. I don't know if you've heard that expression before, but I grew up with that one. It was like, I'm waiting for my ship to come in. Or for me personally, I'm waiting for my cowboy to come and ride up and rescue me and take me off into the sunset, so I don't have to worry about that. There you go.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's
right. Not a viable plan at the end of the day, though. So Matthew, I'm wondering, are there any tools and resources or books that you would recommend that we could check out to become more familiar with the idea of preparing for retirement?
That's a good question. Yeah, great question. Again, there's so much available for free online. Maybe I'll give one website out. Sure. rbcroyalbank.com/retirement is a great tool. It's a website with not only articles talking about retirement, talking about savings, talking about different forms to fund retirement, but it also has some quizzes to see if test if you're ready for retirement.
Okay.
Test how you're thinking about retirement. And then finally, some calculators. So you can plug in some of your information online, in the comfort of your own home without having to necessarily meet or speak with anyone else, just to give you a snapshot, just to give you a bit of an idea of what things could look like. There's a ton of resources on that one website. So I invite everyone to really dive into that, because you can find a lot of information.
Did I get the URL right? I just typed it in while you were saying it there. rbcroyalbank.com/retirement.
RBC, that's it, exactly.
That's it. Okay, perfect. That's a great place to start at the end of the day, just even to begin exploring things. I'm always a big fan of lifelong learning and trying to figure things out. However, when you go online sometimes and you do your searches, it becomes so overwhelming. And
that's
so
right.
At least having a place to start. Yeah. Love it.
Exactly. And I think that the calculators especially give you nice visual cues of where you currently sit and what future retirement can look like.
Right. Gaps that you might want to consider,
exactly.
Looking at addressing or reinvesting, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So my friends, it's action time. If you've been following along with any of the stuff that I do, you know that I'm all about action. And I think it's great to share this kind of information, but I always say, so what at the end of the day? If we're not going to do something about it, then it's really, meaningless at the end of the day. So I want to encourage you to take some time over the next, 24 hours. I always like to say, do it right away. But, take some time to think about getting clear on what enough really means for you in your life, not just in your imagination, but the choices you're making now. And I'm going to encourage you to write this down, because the power of writing something down is about the fact that you take it from this place up here where it floats around and occupies your space. It frees your mind by putting it down on a piece of paper to allow you to be able to process. So first thing I want you to do is I want you to picture your ideal day 10 years from now. What are you doing? Who are you with? How do you feel? What are the experiences that you're going to have? And as you start to think about what that ideal looks like 10 years from now, ask yourself, what would I need financially, emotionally, and practically to make that kind of day possible more often, or as you move into that next phase of your life in retirement? So I think those are really important considerations to think about when we're looking at that next phase or planning for retirement or what we want next from life, we're going to need resources to do what we need to do. We're going to need to be emotionally prepared, and it has to be something realistic or practical for us to do, so that we can have success or feel success in what we're doing. And then I want you to stop and think about how can you take it one step further. So what's the one thing you can do in the next 30 days to move closer? And actually, I'm going to put this up on the screen. What's one thing you can do in the next 30 days to move closer to your version of enough, whatever enough looks like for you? And I want you to write that statement. Enough for me looks like, and then fill in the blank, and then say, and my next step toward it is to, and fill in the blank. And maybe that's something simple like, I'm going to rewatch these videos, I'm going to talk to Matthew, or I'm going to reach out to somebody, that you feel comfortable with, and just have the conversations, do your research, start exploring, whatever that looks like, because this type of action can really be powerful in moving you forward to the next thing. If I could be super real and raw, my avoidance of doing this type of action has left me in a place 2 years out from when I want to retire. And to me, it's a non-negotiable. So I'm like really trying to do catch up right now, figuring out how I'm going to make this plan to retire in 2 years. I do have a pension, I have my business, and I'm trying to build it so that I can continue to do that after. But I avoided making this plan. I avoided because I was afraid, because I didn't know the right questions to ask. I had shame and embarrassment about the fact that I'd left it so long. When I was married, my spouse knew it all, and I knew I could trust and rely on them to help answer those questions. And then I didn't have that person anymore. And so, I really think it's an act of luck that I ran into Matthew just over a year ago, and we just connected. And I think that's really important, finding an advisor, somebody that you trust and that you respect, who can help you have the conversations that are necessary to have, where you don't feel judged, you don't feel embarrassed, you don't feel ashamed, or if you do, it's okay to feel those things and still get the answers to the questions you need. So that's my challenge to all of you right now, is to take that one piece of action, so that you can move forward, so that you can live the life you want to live in that next chapter, that next phase of whatever retirement looks like for you. What do you think, Matthew?
No, I love what you say. I think we've talked about it a few times on this series of calls, and being vulnerable is so important, and having people in your life, whether it's in your personal life or a professional relationship, where you can be comfortable, sharing difficult thoughts or things that worry you or concern you, is so important, because the stuff we're talking about today is very real, and planning for retirement or investing or saving, whatever stage of life you might be in, it's such an important issue. So I really like that point. I love the homework, as I'll call it, that you're giving, and really having everyone listening in identify enough for them, because I think when you work at it that way, that that big number everyone feels they have to have for retirement is going to be it's going to be different, and you're going to have something real and tangible that you're trying to accomplish, and you can build a number around that, rather than just trying to pick a really large number that is maybe unattainable, or at least feels that way starting out. So I really love the action item this week. We've talked about it. It's never too early to start planning. It's also never too late. Have the conversation. It's so important. You make sure that you're using all of the tools available for Canadians to grow their retirement savings, their retirement nest egg, tax-free or tax efficiently. Start having those conversations, if you haven't already, on how to open your TFSA, how to contribute to that savings. If you're putting your savings just in in a typical savings account at your bank, you're missing out on some real growth opportunity and tax efficiency. So I encourage everyone to start looking at that and making sure that their personal, I mean, savings infrastructure is in place and that they're set up now for the retirement phase of life.
Nice. Those are some really great, simple next steps for people to be able to take. And so for those of you who are filling in your action around what's enough for you and the next step that you're going to take to fill that, I think it's, visit either that RBC site or just start asking the questions, start checking out, what accounts you have and what they're doing, and just ask the questions. Don't be afraid. Act through, whatever anxiety or fear you have, and embrace the process. It's a pretty exciting time when you allow yourself the ability to have that sense of adventure and exploration for what's next for you. Well, Matthew, we're coming to the end for this week. Any final parting words that you want to share before I tell our viewers what we're going to talk about next week?
I'll say it over and over again. Start having those conversations with yourself and with your family or your professional team members. It's going to help out. And the number of times that I've sat down and helped people with a plan and help them discover that they really have more. They're in a better position than they may have thought. It helps them. It helps them plan a retirement life that they maybe didn't think that they could afford, that they could have dreamt of. So start the planning now, because your advisors are going to be able to probably find ways to maximize what you have, maximize tax efficiency, and hopefully give you the life that you're dreaming of and really looking for.
You know what? We haven't talked about this, but something you just said sparked it for me. And I'm actually going to encourage, not specifically about retirement, but just in general about our conversation. For those of you who have kids, start talking to your kids about this kind of stuff. Like, make it normal for them. Take them and get them to open their first bank account, and make it an exciting thing for them to be a part of, and engage them in the conversations, because I think there's something really powerful about that. Would you agree, Matthew?
Absolutely agree. I spend a lot of time working with families and different generations, helping everyone better understand finances and things like financial planning and investing through the generations and estate planning. But having everyone in your family, your beneficiaries or grandchildren, family members involved to some degree in the process just makes things simpler as time goes on and as situations evolve. So I love that idea. The earlier you can bring your kids into to better understand finance, the better. It's never too early for them to start learning about these important topics that are going to just follow them throughout their life.
Yeah, I really wish high schools and universities and elementary schools would actually include some curriculum intentionally as part of the regular curriculum around this kind of stuff. But yeah. So this is a great segue. We're moving into our final session of this 4-part series of She's Got Plans next week on Thursday, October 30th, back here, same spot, Facebook or LinkedIn. And the session is called Protect What Matters, Planning for Life's What Ifs Before You Need to. And this isn't about a conversation about fear. It's really about freedom. And like Matthew just said, it's about having the conversations that need to be had to help you feel truly protected financially, legally, emotionally, so that you can move forward in your life and have the peace of mind. And often that includes involving other people in your life. I know my mom, she's, nearing 80, and she's been starting to have conversations with me about, how to navigate things and what she's looking for and what she's doing with her plans, and how she would like me to deal with things, that kind of stuff. It's important conversations, and it doesn't have to be morbid. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable. I'm losing my voice. Matthew, step in.
No, you're right. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable. It's all part of the process, whether it is a Word document that lists, banking account numbers, passwords, and contacts. Everyone may have a different process, but really start to plan for all of the scenarios that could come up. If you're planning for some worst case scenarios and they don't happen, even better. But if they do, at least there's a plan in place and continuity for your life and for your family in the event something happens.
Nice. So a little teaser for our session for next week. Sorry about that, folks. I've been battling a cold and it caught up with me. I was trying to not let it do that. Matthew, thank you so much for joining me for this session again this week. I'm just loving our conversation and how you're able to break it down into a really simple, easy, plain language way for people to really just embrace and get their head around their finances. And for those of us who've got plans for where we want to go in our life, I think there's some really valuable tips and resources. So looking forward to our last session next week. It's not too late to sign up or invite a friend to join us for the session. So if you would like to receive reminders or follow-up emails that give you the links to additional resources and information we're talking about, feel free to visit countryjewel.ca and you can find more information there. Otherwise, my friends, we'll see you same time, same place next week, Thursday, October 30th, in Living and Loving the Life We're Meant to Live. Have a great rest of your week.